Hey there, welcome back to the Speak Your Piece podcast. My name is Ian McNaughton, Big E here with you. Thank you for joining me. I'm all by myself for this episode because other people are busy. A lot of my friends are doing exams. I didn't have time to book a guest for the rest of the week. So I have just this podcast with myself. I might do another one later this week. We'll see though how ambitious I am. I know for sure we have one podcast next week, and it's going to be a really good one, and you're going to like it. A fan favorite podcast. And then we might do another one depending on the schedule. So at least one podcast for sure next week, if not two. Also working out the holiday schedule. We're going to be doing some live streams, some more podcasts, more content. So it's going to be good. Good stuff on the way. So today's a mailbag question. I'm going to do a bit of an intro, a bit of a riff at the beginning, and then I'm going to answer some of people's questions later on. Thank you very much to everybody who sent in a question. It's greatly appreciated. I know I did one last week where I talked about the Canucks and who's to blame for their mess, and then stuff happened. So, I might say that I'm the reason why the Canucks made moves, not the actual Canucks or the players or Aquilina or anybody. It's because Ian did a podcast on them. So that means that teams have to do stuff. So maybe if I talk about Ottawa, which I'm not planning on, maybe if I talk about Ottawa, the Senators will do something here. I want to first discuss about officiating and refs in the NHL. It's been a topic of conversation for a while now, but at least through the start of this season, where people are talking about players drawing penalties, officiating, critiques. Are we calling enough? Should we be calling more? What do we call, et cetera, et cetera? So what I want to start with here is back in like the 70s and the 80s, when the NHL was growing, but it was on the same level as baseball or the NFL or the NBA was kind of slowly, progressing its way as well, like the NHL. But, back in the 70s and 80s, the NHL was more rinky-dink, shall I say. There was no official jersey manufacturer of the NHL in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, really. There was no national TV contract in the U.S., so Gretzky and Lemieux and all those guys didn't have a national spotlight on them in the U.S., at least, on not cable. What's the other? Well, cable and, just basic TV. They didn't have that deal in the U.S. throughout the 80s. And, there were a few arena sponsors back then, like, there used to be Northland Gardens in Edmonton, not Rogers, now it's Rogers, but Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver. It used to be the Forum in LA, and now that's all changed. And this included, I feel like, refs. Not to say that refs were rinky-dink, but how they officiated a game was different back then. The refs back in the day were mostly there as bodyguards to, prevent, a serious melee or brawl. And even though we still got a bunch of that, that's kind of where the refs were utilized in terms of just, preventing things from, getting too serious or breaking out. They would make calls, but it's not like it is right now. And Cyclone Taylor, the great Cyclone Taylor, who was one of the first hockey stars back in the early 1900s. Cyclone Taylor talked about how the players would get pregame talks from refs explaining how the game would go, or if so-and-so, if you, number 28, if you're going to be a pain in the ass again, you're going to get an early call. And he mentioned about how, he talked about this in his biography, which is a great read, by the way. I'd highly suggest taking a look. He talked about how this created a bond and a mutual respect between players and refs. It's that you got to know this person, you got to meet this person, you got to see this person, and this person was an authority figure, and you had a respect for this authority figure because they were also doing a job. They were getting paid. They were a referee. So, and as time went on, they just got rid of that. They don't have those pregame meetings anymore with refs and players, understanding how the game's going to go, even at a lower level. I never had a ref come into our dressing room before a game, purely because we just didn't do that. We weren't, we weren't friends with the refs. We didn't know the refs. It's kind of a, taboo thing to have a ref going into a team's locker room pregame. But now, since Bettman has taken over the NHL, now since Bettman has been commissioner of the NHL, the league has become this billion-dollar business. Like, now Adidas is the official jersey manufacturer of the NHL. The NHL is on ESPN, ABC, TNT. They have national channels, a national US TV contract deal. Almost every arena in the NHL is sponsored. I mentioned how, it used to be Pacific Coliseum. Now it's Rogers Arena. It used to be Northland Gardens in Edmonton. Now it's Rogers Place. It used to be the Great Forum in LA. Now it's, was Staples Center. Now it's going to be Crypto.com Arena. Like, the league has become such a business now and has become so, financially dependent. Like, they're now a $1 billion industry. That's what the NHL is, purely from increased revenues. And a lot of the stuff, while the league is still not as successful or as popular as it should be, or as it could be, it hasn't really changed officiating that much. Think of the major changes that have happened to referees over the last 20, 30, 40 years. They now wear helmets. They have official uniforms. They get their first class flights. They're flying with teams in some occasions, most occasions. So, and in terms of how an official calls a game, it's tighter, but it's still this, you got to let them play. You got to let them, boys will be boys, guys will be guys, going after one another. And there's not this kind of respect or attitude for treating officials like or refereeing or linesmen. There's not the attitude of treating that like $1 billion business, like everything else has in the NHL. And it's noticeable. It's noticeable when it comes to playoffs. It was noticeable Sunday when the Leafs played the Jets. It's been noticeable in other games this year and other missed calls. So I don't like what I'm saying here is that while the league has progressed and it's still far away from where it should be from being successful and to be, truly a top tier sport, a top tier league, I should say. Hockey's the best sport. NHL is the worst league. And while they have made progressions in some areas, that hasn't come in officiating. The training of officiating, I think is declining. I feel like the respect towards officials is declining because of the fact that the NHL has not taken it as seriously. You have to remember, these officials are people too. And when you live life, when you do various different things, you're going to meet various different kinds of people. Not everybody is the same. Not everybody's going to have the same opinion or the same feeling as you do on a certain subject. However, that doesn't mean you have to hate a referee. It doesn't mean you have to dislike the referee. You can dislike what he's doing, but he's still an official. He's still a referee. So on one end, I am defending officials a little bit because it's not an easy job. It's one of the hardest jobs to do. And you get no love for it. You get no appreciation for it because you're an official. You're not, you're not for team A and you're not for team B. You're team C. You're another team. No one likes you already off the jump because you're not part of one team. And the NHL has failed to progress to put officiating in the same class as everything else in terms of being $1 billion business. And that's why we're having problems with penalties. That's why we're having problems with, players not respecting rules. players not respecting officials. I think, having something like when Cyclone Taylor talked about having the referee come into your locker room before the game. That's a small step. That's a very small step in terms of creating a more successful, sustainable officiating plan, because there is no officiating plan. There is nothing. It is just making it up as you go. It's literally like me writing some essay on something that I have no idea, where I'm just bullshitting halfway through the article or halfway through the paper because I know I need to put words in. I just don't know what any of it, means or what they actually want. It's just me not paying attention. That's kind of what the NHL officiating is, just them not really paying attention and them just like kind of throwing in like a paragraph or two in the middle of the paper because that sounds right. Like that's kind of where we're at. So once the NHL starts treating officials and referees like $1 billion business, then they'll get more respect. Then the league will get more respect. But in the meantime, because everything else has progressed, while officials haven't, because the NHL probably doesn't respect the officials as much as, they do making money. Because the officials don't make them money. The officials don't generate revenue for the NHL. They're an expense. They cost money. You have to pay officials to ref these games. That's I think where the NHL is seeing this. But hey, we'll see if the NHL actually does something. I hope they do something sooner rather than later, but who knows for sure. So there you go. That's what I wanted to start. But let's go into some people's questions. So as of starting recording, there's 6 questions from people. Thank you to everybody who sent in a question. First, SYP creator Scott, who couldn't make it. I think he's writing a 12-page paper as I'm doing this, which that seems like a lot, but hopefully it's on something he's interested in. Probably selling knives to, all UBCO students. It's a 12-page marketing plan is what that is. Scott asks, who's actually winning the Calder, Trevor Zegras or Lucas Raymond? Now, I'm recording this after Zegras had his beautiful assist tonight against the Sabres. He rocks. There's no doubt about that. Scott and I are going to go see Zegras and the Ducks in person December 23rd when they come to Vancouver. So that's going to be really cool. So right now, my top five for Calder Trophy voting this year, if I had to vote, my top 5 would be number 5, Michael Bunting with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's had a really good season. Number 4, Dawson Mercer with the Devils. Moritz Seider's number 3 with the Red Wings. Seider left tonight's game early against the Nashville Predators. Number 2 is Trevor Zegras, and number 1 is Lucas Raymond. I should have done this. Anyways, for those who are watching on YouTube, I did something wrong. Listen, I think Raymond is the top. Is at the top of the Calder voting right now. I think he would win if the season ended today. Raymond wins the Calder if he has 80 points and or makes the playoffs or leads the Red Wings in scoring. I think if he does one of those things, he's probably going to be the Calder winner. If he does all 3 of those things, he's definitely going to be the Calder winner. Zegras wins if he leads the Ducks to the playoffs or he has 80 points. I don't think if he's the leading scorer of the Ducks, they give it to him. But, I mean, I think if Zegras can get Anaheim back into the playoffs, yeah, he's probably going to win the Calder, because who thought that, the Anaheim Ducks would make the playoffs after all that's gone on? I mean, same with the Red Wings, but I feel like the Red Wings made more moves in the offseason that you could see how they would get to the playoffs, where I don't think you saw that with Anaheim. But no, I think Raymond, before tonight, he had 22 points in 25 games, 17.2 shooting percentage. That's really high. That's going to come down here at some point, probably over the next 6 weeks. I'm guessing that shooting percentage is just a bit unrealistic. So that shooting percentage is going to have to come down. Zegras has a 9.4 shooting percentage, 21 points in 24 games. Zegras and Raymond, I get a feeling they're probably going to be close to like the 60, 70 point range. If either one of them gets to 80 points or makes the playoffs, that's the guy who will win the Calder. So right now, I'm going to say Raymond. And I'm going to say probably Raymond wins it too. Cider, Mercer, and Bunting, maybe. The problem with Raymond and Cider is that they could split votes, and that's what puts Zegras over the edge. It could happen. I'm not sure. Mercer needs to step it up. He's like a tier below the top two. Same with Bunting. Bunting and Mercer are kind of in the same realm, I would think. So that's who I think is actually winning the Calder right now and in the future. Scott also asked, who's the next GM in Vancouver for the Canucks? The hotter the take, the better. So, Scott, and for all the Canucks fans listening, I took a bunch of notes before this podcast, and I have 15 different names you can see here. I also put down if they were on the, neutral, evil, good scale. I wrote that down for all the candidates. My top 5 GMs, if I was Aquilini and I had to hire a GM, my top 5 would be the Sedin brothers. I'm counting them as one. They both are like co-GMs because you can't have one without the other. That's kind of a dick move if you make like Henrik the GM and then Daniel the assistant GM. I feel like they both have to be co-GMs. Jim Rutherford, because I think this team is good enough to win now. I think the core is good enough to win now. At least the forward group, you got to fix defense, and Rutherford could probably do that in 3 years to go make a cup contender. You have the goaltending. You just need to fix defense. That's it. That's all you're. If you can fix the defense with this team, you're fine. I feel like Rutherford can do that. He can make some trades. He can get rid of OEL, Tucker Poolman, get those shitty contracts in, bring in some more preferable, decent contracts. Number 3, I have Cami Granado, who is currently a scout for the Seattle Kraken. She has plenty of hockey experience, as you know, plenty of hockey experience with USA Hockey. This is her first season with the Kraken being a scout. So I think she could be an NHL GM any day now, really. It's just a matter of who's going to be the team that gives her that opportunity. I don't know that the Kraken would be wanting her to go to the Canucks. I don't know if that's going to happen, like in terms of like the rivalry, but I think it'd be really cool if the Canucks made Cami Granado the first female GM in the NHL. Scott Mellanby is my 4th option, just because I think Scott Mellanby is a decent guy, and I think he is good enough to be a GM. That's just my opinion. I mean, it didn't really end as well as you thought it would in Montreal, but he's Scott Mellanby. He's a name. He's probably deserving of a GM job as well at some point. And then the 5th guy I have is Chris McFarland, and he's the AGM in Colorado. That's who I would look at as like my 5th option, is like if he would be interested in joining the Canucks, because surely he knows how to like get defensemen, really good defensemen, considering they have Cale Makar, Bowen Byram, Ryan Graves, bunch of guys. There's enough guys in Colorado that they can find perfectly capable D-men. Although I think they're going with the Jack Johnson, somebody else who's not good pairing. I want to see if I can find that here. I feel like McFarland could make Vancouver good enough, because really you have the forwards. You just need the defense. You just need the consistent D pair. Jack Johnson and Curtis McDermott. Ryan Graves was on the team, but now it's Samuel Girard, so I'm thinking of, and he traded for helped trade for Devon Taves. Yeah, this team's pretty not bad defensively. If you can get somebody like McFarland to help be the GM, get some good D-men, I think that would solve it. Most likely candidates for the job. This is who I think is actually in running for the job. The Sedin twins, Jim Rutherford, Mark Bergevin, because why not? John Chayka, because why not? And Scott Mellanby. I think those are likely the candidates. Although I've heard Mike Gillis is getting some love for some reason. Mike Gillis is like on the chaotic neutral for me. Like I think sure, okay, I guess. We kind of know where this is going. And I mean, unless Thatcher Demko is the next coming of Roberto Luongo and Petey and Besser are the next coming of Hank and Daniel, sure. Like, I think part of it was like Gillis got not lucky, but like they had some franchise corner pieces that I don't know are quite there on Vancouver. Like, I think they have good players. I don't know if they're like the Sedin twins and the Wongo good. Mark Bergevin, of course, because this is the NHL. We just recycle everybody. Same white guy over and over again gets to be coach of GM. And John Chayka, analytical darling, apparently. Sure, we just recycling the same guys. Just because it didn't work in Arizona doesn't mean it couldn't work in Vancouver, right? I mean, look at all the great guys that, Arizona had, like Christian Fisher. I actually don't mind Fisher. I've said that before. I don't mind him, but like he's not as hyped as I thought he was going to be. Not as good as I thought it was going to be. Clayton Keller, Christian Dvorak, OEL. Jacob Chikrin's actually good, but still, my point is that we're just recycling the same guys all over the place, and God forbid anybody of any sort of diversity or something new comes up. But maybe that's Scott Mellanby. Maybe Scott could take the Canucks GM jobs. Scott Mellanby, Scott Conkin, all those guys could have the job. Who says no? Okay. That's my thoughts on the Canucks GM job. Gabe Krasinowski, SYP Creator Gabe asked, Ryan McLeod, this isn't really a question, I guess. Ryan McLeod should get a chance on a line with McDavid and Draisaitl. To which I say, sure. Why not put all your top three centers on one line? Faceoffs are overrated. I'm trying to think of how that would go. So you'd have McDavid as your center, and then Draisaitl as your left wing, and McLeod as your right wing. And then you have Zach Hyman, Tyler Yamamoto. Would you put Warren Fogle on your second line center? Listen, I get what you're trying to do there, Gabe, but like, I don't think it would work. You have could Nugent Hopkins play center? You have a Hyman, Nuge, Yamamoto second line. How about that? And then you have a third line of Warren Fogle, Cassie, and Puljujarvi. There you go. Winner, chicken dinner. Maybe get Ryan McLeod. I haven't seen McLeod this year. I have no idea. I think he has 3 goals this year. I basically stopped watching McLeod after junior, but maybe he's good. Maybe he will be good. Sportsnet, I think earlier today did a piece of like, yeah, McDavid and Draisaitl are good, but they need more help from the depths of like the depth forwards and like the defense. And it's just like, you could write this article about the Oilers every year for the last 15 years. Like since they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, you could write this article. Even then, you probably could have wrote that article because it was just Chris Pronger dragging the depths of the Oilers from nowhere to the Stanley Cup, to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So, as much as you want to create the OP line, Gabe, I feel like that's kind of goes against what the Oilers should be doing. How about that Zach Hyman, though? That Zach Hyman's cool. He rocks. All right. My brother Neil McNaughton, he asked, how do you justify your carbon footprint? We're all going to die. We're all going to die. None of this matters. None of what I do matters. From I think both a literal and a figurative. I mean, and from a figurative sense, yeah, what I do matters because, figuratively, this is going to help me, become something, I like to think, but in reality, it doesn't. None of it matters. We're all going to die. Big corporations have ruined the world for the rest of us. My favorite thing is when, I think it was over the summer, when Prince Harry was just like, I think this is because there was like a G8 summit meeting or something in England, and Prince William, whatever, one of those guys, Prince William, I'll say, was like, yeah, we people need to do more, like the general public needs to do more to stop, climate change and greenhouse gases or whatever, or CO2 into the atmosphere. And it's just like, dude, you can talk to the people who are being the biggest contributors of this. Not saying that me and my car and I aren't contributing something. And I guess something is something. It's not nothing. It is something. But the major, contributors don't really care what I have to say or what I do. And I need my car to go places. I need to drive to go to work. And until they make, mass transit more reliable, this is my best option. I don't know how to stop that cycle, I guess, from my own personal experience. I don't know how to stop the cycle. Like, if I had the access to proper public transportation, I would do that. If there was a better mass transit throughout, the Northwest, I would totally use it. But there isn't, you see? That's a problem. And I need my car to go places. But if there was a train, I would take that train. See, I don't know where the cycle is. Like, I don't know how to stop. Like, I need to drive to get where I'm going. But if there's a train, I would take the train and not just the Amtrak, because like the Amtrak is stupid. Just take better transportation. So Neil or anybody listening, if they have any suggestions on how I could break my cycle of just like, well, if I had better mass transit taking me down to the States, I would take that. But because there isn't, then I have to have my car. But at the same time, me taking my car helps, keep Shell and big gas and oil in business. And I don't want to do that, but I don't have a choice. If somebody can help me break that, that would be greatly appreciated. So I guess to answer your question, Neil, how do you justify your carbon footprint? We're all gonna die. Who am I? I'm probably not, not doing as much as I can, the best I can. But you see these other people that are doing stuff that are much worse, and nobody's causing them any grief. Talk to them. Friend of the pod, Hayden Barton, asked, how well was your fantasy football this year? And let me tell you, Hayden, not great. I was in 3 leagues this year. Hayden, I was in 2 of the leagues that I was in. I don't know if this is my main one, but this is the one I've been in for like 5 or 6 years now that I won a few years ago. The one that I take the most pride in. Fantasy leagues, no offense, not that I didn't enjoy and I didn't have fun being in Hayden's league or with Jevin's league. Jevin also has a question, but fantasy football leagues, it's not like parenting. Like, you do have one that you really love. I think that's true. Like, you have one that you love more than the other one. It's not saying that I hate the other leagues. I just think there's one that you love more than the others. The main one that I'm in, where my team sucked. I mean, my team was good, and now I've lost 5 straight. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've lost 4 straight in my main one. With it's a 2 QB 0 PPR league, and my team has been shit. Partially because I don't know. I've been streaming defenses. My running backs have have been underwhelming. could have been better now. That one is my team name for that one is my QB is an anti-vaxxer because Aaron Rodgers is on my team. But I think Josh Allen's also an anti-vaxxer. I feel like he's also an anti-vaxxer. The main one with Hayden is called the Weekend Warriors Fantasy League, which is a 12-team best ball PPR. This is my first best ball league that I've ever been in, and I think maybe my first PPR league as well. And that one, I was like worried that I was going to miss the playoffs, but fortunately, Hayden made it so that it was an 18 playoff instead of a 14 playoff. So I'm in as the fifth seed. I think I'm in as the fifth seed. And I have to play Duncan. I don't know who Duncan is, but I have to play Duncan P. Went 8-5 in that league. I got Josh Allen, Ramondre Stevenson, Zach Moss, Metcalf, T. Higgins, Gronk. A couple decent wide receivers in that league on that team. Is there anybody? Mac Jones? See, Mac Jones, I drafted Mac Jones in like a couple of my leagues because I figured he would at least be at minimum a decent backup for bye weeks. I figured he would get to the point where he would be starting on bye weeks, and two, he could at least develop into like a decent quarterback and be like the Mendoza line of like fantasy starting quarterbacks, not the guys like the fucking Daltons of the world. So that league turns out well. I got to play Duncan this week in playoffs though, so root for me, not Duncan. I don't even know who Duncan is. I'm sure Duncan's a decent guy. These are all friends of Hayden. I don't know any of them in that league. The third league I'm in, show me your TDs with Jevin. I have collapsed hard and missed the playoffs. I want to see where's my schedule. I can find my goddamn schedule. Playing like fucking shit in this league. Yeah, I basically like had like was like a fringe playoff team. I mean, I guess I kind of was 6-7. I've lost 2 straight. Yeah, nobody in this league, like Hayden in this league, Hayden Barton, he's won 6 straight games to move up the second seed. So like he's done well. Jevin did not have a great season. But I also lost to Jevin, like not this week, but like the week before. And if I beat Jevin, I'm pretty sure I would have made the playoffs. So that stunk. Jevin went 5-8. Hayden went 9-4. I went 6-7. And that team, I had Brady, Nick Chubb, Daryl Henderson, Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin, Greg Kittle, Mike Williams, T. Higgins, Mac Jones. You see, like that team rocks. Like that team is like an ideal fantasy team. And that's not even including Waddle, Gronk. I feel like I had somebody else I had to drop due to injury. That team, this team in Jevin's league, which is a 10-team standard league, that team is better than 6-7. I'll tell you that much. I'm not afraid to tell you that team is better than 6-7. So screw that. This year has been an underwhelming year in fantasy, but I think there's also the argument to make that since I went to Japan in 2019, I've been shit because I was like, if you knew me from like middle school and high school, you knew that I was like big into NFL and I really got into football, really started following and like, you know, understanding like even different defenses. Like I was not afraid to tell you like what a cover 6 defense was compared to a cover 2, what routes you need to be, you know, running on each defense. Like I wasn't afraid to do that, blocking schemes. And since I went to Japan to cover rugby, my fantasy football success has just dwindled dramatically. So hopefully I can redeem myself somewhat in the Weekend Warriors Fantasy League. Finally, last question from Jevin from the Left Side Heavy podcast. Shout out Jevin. He actually did a really interesting exploration on Russell Wilson trade candidates. Go check out his YouTube channel. Really interesting conversation with him and Hayden. So Jevin asked, does Besser make Team USA? And this is an interesting question because we talked about this, I don't know, 3 weeks ago with Rav. Rav and I talked about this at SFU, 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know. I have no frame of reference anymore with COVID, but I think Besser makes Team USA. I don't know. It feels like last year even he had like 40 points in 50 games. Like he had a 20-goal season, but it feels like his confidence has like really dwindled since like the bubble. Because I remember in the bubble where like I thought Besser would have taken more shots than he didn't. Again, he had 20 goals last year, so not to say that he's always losing confidence, but at the same time, hopefully a new coach in Vancouver helps. He's got the teammates to be really good, teammates to be really successful. I think he's good enough to be on Team USA. I think you'd be making a mistake if you don't put Besser on Team USA. I think that's a mistake. I think part of it, what's interesting with the Olympics in a whole is if the NHL players are even going to go because of COVID. I'm kind of leaning towards now like they're not going to go to the Olympics just because of COVID, it being in China, quarantine restrictions. If you do get COVID, I wonder if the NHL players are actually going to go to the Olympics. But also how you build your team for the Olympics. Like, do you just build an all-star team? Because the U.S. can just build an all-star team. And I'm the guy who also at the same time was saying how I think Brady Tkachuk should be on Team USA. But you can either build like an all-star team, an NHL playoff team, if that makes sense, of how you have like your skilled top six, but you also have like how Tampa Bay had like a grind line, and like Detroit back in the day, of course, but just like a line or two of just physical mean guys that are hard to play against. That's what I had with Team Canada when I said Sean Couturier, Ryan O'Reilly, and Mark Stone should be on the line if they're all healthy together. And then I saw Couturier just watch Cale Makar go coast to coast and not do anything. And then it's like, okay, you're not ready to be on Team Canada. You're just watching dudes. You can't play for Canada. But I think Besser, regardless of how the U.S. decides they want to build a team, I think Besser should be on it. I don't have an issue with that whatsoever. I would be disappointed. I'm sure he would too if the NHL players are actually going to go to the Olympics and Besser doesn't make the team. That's all the mailbag questions I have for this episode. Thank you very much for sending them in. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I have. We'll be doing a podcast for sure next week. We have one for sure next week. We'll probably do two next week. We're going to be doing some more live streams. We're going to be doing some more content coming up here, which I will announce as we get it finalized. But basically, like the holidays, we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff, which I'm excited to announce. I'm excited to do. Should be great. Thank you very much for listening. Greatly appreciated, of course. Be sure to check us out on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that. Be sure to like this video. You can also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, you can find us there. And then we'll be back soon. We'll be back again maybe next week for sure. And maybe early next week. We'll be back. Can't wait. We'll see you then. Peace out.